because I was way too excited to talk to my guy John. Right up for PFF. We got him?
Yes, we do.
What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Hey, John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you tapping in, man.
Of course,
First of all,
always happy to.
Oh, not much. I mean, a lot going on. Lions fans are restless right now. I mean, I don't know if you're tied into Lions Twitter at all, but you'd think that Brad Holmes is the worst GM in the league with the way these guys are acting about him, man.
It's like any fan base. Every fan base is not happy this time of year because they wanted certain guys or they make the biggest splash in free agency, and just not how you build a team. You fill small holes with free agents and you build through the draft, which is what Brad Holmes has been phenomenal at.
Absolutely. And one of the guys he drafted last year that I respect your opinion on, and I want to see, I guess, what your expectations are for year two for him was Terrion Arnold. I feel like he was kind of always in phase, but never really turned his head around, and obviously was a little bit too physical at times too. What's your expectations for Terrion Arnold in year two?
I would expect growth, right? I think he struggled a bit as a rookie. Rookies, you never know how they're if they're gonna hit the ground running, like we've seen from a cornerback position, especially like Sauce Gardner last year. Quinyon Mitchell and obviously Cooper DeJean were great as rookies. Terrion Arnold had a lot of penalties. I think he was in tight coverage a good amount of time, but just gave up too many catches and made too many penalties. So I would expect him to clean up the penalties from a year ago. Last year at the end of the season, we had him as our 57th ranked cornerback in our advanced metrics. So not a great season, but not the worst by any means. Right kind of middle of the league. Out of 100 players, that's where I ranked him at. So not. I mean, from a rookie standpoint, not terrible by any means. It's just I think clean up the mistakes. And I'll see some growth because I think he was a really good prospect coming out, and I like his talent for sure.
Okay, that was kind of gonna be my little add-on question. Do you still have the same expectations for him following his rookie season?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's a bust or anything right after a rookie season where he struggled a little bit, right? Like I think you still lean on the talent that he had, your evaluations you had out on him coming out of college. Some players need some time to develop. The college game is different than the NFL game. You can't be as handsy at the NFL level as you can in college. Like, so you can get away with kind of like murder as a cornerback in college because they call flag the defensive pass interference and illegal contact differently in college than they do at the NFL level. So it takes some time for those guys, and I think for him, he's got the talent, he's got the speed, he's got the instincts, I think, at that position to develop to a really quality cornerback. Is he going to be like, Sauce Gardner, top 5 type of guy? Maybe not, but I think he should be a very good cornerback in the NFL.
John, I know this is what you do for a living. You study, you do this. This is what you devote your life to, but I just think I'm going to listen to the average Lion fan that tells me because he wasn't Sauce Gardner his rookie year that he's a bust and he's just never going to get better.
Yeah, he's a bum. He's never getting better. It's over for him.
It was a wasted pick. Apparently, mid-20s, he's not the best corner in the league, and sorry, gotta wipe your hands and retry. Speaking of wiping your hands and retrying, a guy in Ennis Rakestraw who would have loved to do that with his rookie year of how it went down just ended up being kind of a wash because of injury, never really got the playing time or to be able to get out there. What do you expect? I know it's hard to, can we say, is he going to improve? Because we didn't see him enough last year. You didn't see him at all last year, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, you have to see him. You get a lot of snaps as a rookie or you don't. And if you don't get a lot of snaps, you kind of have to lean still on what you thought him from a pre-draft evaluation standpoint. Now, there are obviously reasons why he didn't see the field much in 2024. And I think for him, he's a guy that I liked as a really physical type of cornerback that would go up there and he could play in a slot, be a really good run defender. So I think there's still a path for him, and there's a reason why he wasn't a first round talent. There's a reason why he went into the second round, and I think you have to let those guys take a little bit longer potentially to develop. And sometimes you're looking more to the future for a guy of, hey, we like what this guy has to offer. He has to clean up a few things here, so he's not going to see the field as much. Injuries have a factor obviously as well. So I think the guy still can be a quality cornerback, slot cornerback in the NFL, and it's just kind of a wait and see with him basically at this point.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. How about DJ Reed coming over as a CB2 in his situation, now kind of put in a situation where he may be asked to be CB1? What are your expectations for him? Is he an upgrade or downgrade from Carlton Davis for the Detroit Lions?
I love DJ Reed. He's one of the most consistent cornerbacks in the NFL over the past 6 years. He's consistently graded from a PFF coverage standpoint in the 72 to 78. Like, he's not varied outside of that range his entire career. And last year, from an advanced data metric, we had him as the eighth best cornerback in the NFL. He was number 6 in when you talk about man zone match type of coverage. He was the 6th best cornerback there. So he's great. I think the Jets defense and what he was able to do before Sauce Gardner was there, he was still a really good cornerback. Actually, he arrived at the same time as Sauce Gardner. So he was with Seattle, then went to the Jets at that same time. So he was quality in Seattle, and then went with the Jets. He was really good there as well. So he's a guy that's going to be good in man coverage. He's going to be good in zone coverage. He's going to be sound in his assignments. You're not going to see very many busts from him. And he knows how to play high-level defense, as we saw with the New York Jets for a number of years there.
Yeah, I think that we really saw it last year where the Jets defense was not what it used to be. The Jets defense was not what we were used to seeing the past couple of years. And when you broke down the statistics between him and between him and Sauce Gardner, there wasn't that much of a difference between the way those two played ball last year. You really saw him step up and take on. He was taking on more, targets and stuff like that. Anyways, he's still performing at a very high level. Oh no, go right ahead.
I was going to say, it's their defensive line. It was really bad last year. Yeah. Quinnen Williams had a down year for himself. He graded somewhere in the mid 70s, but he just wasn't as dominant down to down as he had been in previous years. But the rest of that defensive line, we expected them to be a top 5 unit. We expected their linebackers to be top 5 as well. They all dropped off. They just did not play up to the standard we had seen them play in the previous years. And so you have a poor pass rush. You have poor linebacker play in the secondary. In coverage, their safeties were not as great in coverage as well. So, defense is a weak link chain unit. When there's a weak link in that unit, it really kind of takes a toll on a defense. Rather than you have one shutdown corner or even 2 shutdown corners that you have in those guys, you can find everywhere else on the field to pick them apart, and that's what teams did. So Reed and Gardner were great. They're both top 10 in the advanced metrics that we have, and so it wasn't on them the reason why they were a poor defense compared to previous years. It was the other players that are around them that weren't very good.
Are you as familiar with the Lions' offensive line situation as the defensive backfield?
I'm pretty good on it. I know they lost Kevin Zeitler, but you've got one of the best offensive lines still with what's going on with Ragnow and Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker for sure.
Do you think that's a spot they could add in free agency just for, I guess, a contingency plan? Because in my opinion, Graham Glasgow kind of had a bit of a downfall last year. I don't know if it was whether due to injury or just wear and tear of the 17-game season, but I love Mahogany. That was a home run by Brad Holmes in that draft pick. But it's the other side of the ball. I guess I really kind of concerned we lost Kevin Zeitler at.
Yeah, I think there's some options for sure at the interior offensive line that the Lions can fix there. If you want to go into the second round, you're talking maybe potentially a Tyler Booker that might be there for them in the second round. It's not a great class, I would say, for interior offensive line. But if there's a team that I know that can find the gems in this draft, it is the Lions. They've done a really good job of drafting late, and I think Tate Ratledge out of Georgia might be a potential good fit there. But there's also some still potential free agency options out there. I would have to look at the list, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but I think there's always some pretty cheap options that you can find that will good quality starting offensive linemen that can fit in those roles.
And going back to the defense just for a second, looking at the cornerbacks of the Detroit Lions, and they're, I'll just say, vertically challenged when you look at their size. And that's what we were excited to see out of Carlton Davis last year, to bring a big, tall, long, physical cornerback that you could put on a guy that you play twice a year like Justin Jefferson. But now you've got Amik Robertson, Terrion Arnold, and DJ Reed. Is that any concern? Because this Lions team last year was one of the best in the NFL when it came to giving up red zone passing touchdowns. Do you think that could be something that teams could exploit now with the shorter stature of their cornerbacks?
I mean, it's always a concern. You'd rather have guys that are 6'3" plus, that type of size with long arms, and it can scale the vertical tree with the big guys. But I think really when it comes to it, though, you want quality guys out there, and obviously you prefer them to be bigger, but sometimes they're just not. You look at these guys over the course of their careers, they've not been like a detriment in the red zone. They've still been quality corners in the red zone. So I really think it comes down to more technique rather than size when it comes to that. And these guys are good, especially DJ Reed. Like I keep talking about him in terms of how much I love the signing. You talk about this deal. I think it's a great deal because the 3 years, $42 million. I think that's a steal.
Crazy good deal.
Yeah, and I mean only 27.5 million of it was guaranteed. So it's like it's a really good deal, and you're talking about a guy that just doesn't give up very many touchdowns, regardless of where it happens on the field. So, as long as they're playing with good technique, regardless of the size that they're of the defender or the wide receiver they're going up against, I don't think it matters too much that they're on the shorter end of it. Obviously you would prefer taller, but it doesn't have, like for me it's not a breaker, deal breaker.
Yeah.
Got some pretty good safeties back there helping out too in those situations.
Yeah, exactly. Two of the best safeties in the NFL last year. For sure. So
yeah,
I like hearing it from you because it's a non-biased opinion on that one. I gotta ask you this, man. I spared the talk in the DMs because I wanted to get to it in person because we share some pain. I'm a Lions fan. You're a Browns fan.
Yes.
What is going on in Cleveland, man?
It's pretty sure they're going for a quarterback at number 2. Like
I saw your mock.
I just don't see how, at least unless they show me otherwise, that they make a move for somebody that you could trust at the quarterback position. They have to be going quarterback at number 2, basically, because you can't go into a season thinking that Kenny Pickett's your starter. Like that, they don't believe it. I don't believe they believe that, right? Like it just would not be a smart move to do that. You're basically saying, hey, we're tanking for another year, or we're like mailing in for a year, and they have a good enough roster to maybe not compete for a Super Bowl this year, but to get back into playoff contention. I mean, just a year ago they won 11, 12 games or whatever it was, and had a really good season with one of the best defenses in the NFL. They still have a good number of those pieces on that defensive end, that defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Myles Garrett was just signed to a contract extension, so I think I think it's quarterback at number 2. I really do, because unless they make a big move for somebody, I just not going to believe it otherwise.
And then one more thing to bring back to my Detroit Lions. I wish you guys gave us Myles Garrett because obviously it didn't happen. And then you reset the market, kind of screwed us there for Hutch too. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Your mock, I checked it out. The Jackson Dart stuff was crazy for sure. A little wild there.
I'm with you. I love Jackson Dart. I think he might be the best quarterback in the draft.
See, this is the polarizing thing of him. So our lead analyst, Trevor Sikkema, has him as the 126th prospect in the draft, and I have him as a top 10 type of guy.
Yeah.
So, it's I think he's going top 10. I don't know where specifically, but as a mock drafter when it comes to it, I am a believer in Jackson Dart. So as I'm writing a mock draft and I see 3 teams right there with quarterback needs, they're going 1, 2, 3. That's kind of a logical explanation for me on that. They're going to go. The Giants are not going to pass up on a quarterback. They are desperate to take a quarterback, and that's why, for one, I had them trading up with a haul to get to number 1 to get Cam Ward. I've heard some rumors and some reports that they are trying to get up to that 1 spot, and from in my opinion, that would be for Ward. I put the Shadur Sanders to the Browns because Sanders is my top guy in this draft, and then the Titans, they need a quarterback, and I think after they've made that trade where they've added a bunch of assets, they can afford to take the quarterback at that spot and build the roster up around him with those extra picks.
Yeah, I gotta say the trade out you built, you can't deny that if you're the Titans. I want to go to the Lions pick Nick Scorton. How do you see him pairing up next to Aiden Hutchinson? Yeah, we're hurting for a Scorton.
Yeah. I mean, I think he fits what the Lions like from a dude that's going to get the nasty and big and heavy with his hands and push the pocket. And he does a really good job of winning pass rushes. And I know that obviously, what happened to the Lions last year where they had, a gajillion injuries on the defensive side of the ball. So Scorton makes sense to me. He was, from a production standpoint, was the better pass rusher, edge rusher at Texas A&M over Shamar Stewart. So I think for the Lions, like, they need that defensive line help, at least depth-wise, because, outside of Aiden Hutchinson, it really kind of fell off, and especially when you lose Aiden Hutchinson, that really hurts. So for me, I think they need to continue to build up that defense. I think they still need some weapons on offense and obviously address the offensive line, but I think that offense was still phenomenal anyways. So I think you attack that defense to try to hold opponents to less than like 40 points in a playoff game, and might be playing for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Speaking of that defense here, Nick in the sound booth, Ennis Rakestraw, I was high on coming out of the draft last year, and the 61st overall pick last year by the Detroit Lions, could he be an improvement to this defense, and where were you at with Rakestraw coming out of the draft last season?
I liked him. I think he was appropriately picked, about mid-second to late second type of talent. Physical type of guy who's going to go get after it in the run game, as well as he'll be physical at the line of scrimmage with wide receivers. So I think he can absolutely improve the defense if he lives up to what I think he can do and what obviously they think he can do. So they're obviously, I think that there's a massive upgrade going from Carlton Davis to DJ Reed, and then you've got, obviously you had just so many injuries on that defense that you don't have that injury bad luck next year. You get everybody healthy and have some depth there. I think it's just the regression to the mean that the defense is going to be so much better next year, just based on hopefully not having as many injuries.
And could you see the Lions in kind of a conundrum with their defensive backs? Because it looked like Amik Robertson was at his best when he was playing outside. We saw him really take strides, both when he was in Las Vegas and they bumped him outside, and then obviously in Detroit last year, once Carlton Davis goes down, they bump him outside, and he was playing his best ball all year. Is that something they're going to have to look at? Is he not their slot guy, and he's going to be an outside corner?
Maybe. I just don't think it's a bad thing to have too much talent in the secondary, basically, because once you get an injury there, essentially they're going to find that weak link and pick it apart. So, I think it's good for Amik Robertson. He's solid in the slot. Obviously, he played better out wide, and so I think it's one of those things where having more good players in the secondary, you can move them around and find the matchups that you want to find with those guys, and it's only benefits your defense. Do they have an interesting problem to try to figure out, like, where to specifically play these guys? Sure, but like, the more the merrier, basically, when it comes to the secondary, because like you saw, as soon as a guy goes down in that secondary unit, like it's really difficult to replace that guy, and we saw it obviously in the playoffs when Amik Robertson went down.
Yeah. John, I also called you for a important task. I haven't been able to articulate it myself, at least not to everybody, and I understand there's different flavors for different folks, but I am a believer in Shamar Stewart. I just think that the traits, the get off, that's just something you can't really pass up on. People attack me with the 4.5 sacks. I need help in this department, man. Why is Shamar Stewart a top end edge rusher in this year's draft class?
So, I mean, he's going to fly up boards because of what he did at the combine, right? I think if you watched the tape, you knew that he was an athletic kind of phenom. Did anybody expect him to maybe test out like best ever in terms of athleticism? I don't think so. Like, maybe not, but I think for him, there is concern, right? Because when we grade them and evaluate them, he didn't win his pass rush reps at a really high level. I think he has untapped potential that he needs to, when he gets to the NFL, to develop. We've seen it in the past when guys weren't as productive at college, and then they took a couple years and then figured it out in the NFL. We've seen that from Danielle Hunter. We've seen that from Rashawn Gary. I would kind of like, maybe compare him more to Rashawn Gary, who was a phenom athlete at the position, kind of struggled in college to really produce, and then took a couple years in Green Bay, and now he's obviously a really quality edge rusher there. So I think that's kind of the hope that you have with him in terms of his projection. You look at Trayvon Walker, who came out of Georgia a couple years ago, who obviously flew up draft boards when they found out that he was a freak athlete. He was a guy that that didn't produce very well in college. Like he had some good production, but not great. Not stuff that you'd say, oh, this guy's a top 10 or even first overall pick for sure. And he's struggled so far in Jacksonville. So there is a risk that you take when you say, hey, this guy is a phenom athlete, but he didn't produce in college, and you're expecting him to all of a sudden turn it on at the NFL level. Because there's a lot of hit and misses when it comes to that, and it's less of a hit when you see the bad production and in college, because if you're that good of an athlete, why weren't you winning in college in the first place? So he has obviously the raw talent. He needs to develop it though.
And John, before we let you get out of here, we appreciate you so much for joining.
Man.
I got a couple of questions for you to try to calm down the Lions fans, because it's good to get the outside perspective on it, because if we say it, we're called slappies, we're all your yes men, blah, blah, blah. But normally we're the guys freaking out. Like when we didn't trade for Chase Young, when we could have made a Super Bowl, we were the guys freaking out. And they were calling us crazy, and now it's kind of flipped. First one, what would you grade Brad Holmes' free agency so far from the outside perspective?
I'd probably get a B+. I think it's been very calculated, and you're not spending money wildly. I think he does a really good job of finding pieces that you need. Obviously, the defensive tackle on Zuwerke, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but good signing, good quality player. Obviously, for cheap too. Talking about a $5.5 million deal. For 1 year. Roy Lopez, not a great PFF grades, but again, get him for a cheap contract, a veteran guy that knows how to push the pocket and is quality there. And obviously, I love the DJ Reed signing. I think that's one of the best in all of free agency of any team that's out there because of how good he is. So I think he's been fine. B+ for getting good value from the signings he has had. But the thing is, he's the type of guy that finds good value in the draft and drafts really well, and that's how you build your team. So he's kind of plugging some needs that the team has in free agency, so it allows him to be able to take the best player available when it comes to the draft, which is what he always does.
And then finally, one thing the Lions either need to do or have to have happen for them to get back in the NFC Championship game and beyond.
They need to be able to. I mean, Jared Goff, I think, needs to be able to play better in the playoffs.
Oh, they're not gonna like that. No,
right? He's good, right? Like he's good, but I think he needs. There's another level he needs to get to when it comes to the playoffs, which is, and he has to be able to do it without Ben Johnson, and I think that's the biggest question for me. So obviously, everybody loves Ben Johnson in Detroit. Maybe they don't love him anymore because he went to Chicago, but he was phenomenal as a play caller for Detroit, no question about it, and he absolutely got everything out of Jared Goff and that offense that he possibly could. So is there another level that Jared Goff can get to? I'm not sure there is, but I think I want to see him just to be more consistent at the biggest stage level. I think he played well, obviously, in 2023, that playoff run. I don't think the collapse was his fault by any means.
I agree.
But I think there's an aspect of being the quarterback where it kind of does fall on you to lift that team out of the doldrums that they're in and to be able to overcome that comeback and basically pull it off in the end. Same thing with last year where they ran into a kind of a juggernaut that were the Washington Commanders, and the defense was really bad. But I think there's a step that he can make to also. Part of it is it's hard because they really kind of moved up and down the field, but there was aspects of the game where you thought he could have made this throw or made this play there and didn't do it, right? So in that big moments, those small mistakes kind of get magnified, and I want to see him kind of elevate above that a little bit too.
Don't we all?
I mean, it comes down to the quarterback in the NFL. It really kind of does, and. I mean, you look at that game, Jaden Daniels played better than Jared Goff in the end. I think he was just a little bit better than him, and that's what ended up winning it for them. And, I mean, there's a bad play call there with the wide receiver reverse pass that was intercepted or whatever. But Goff threw an interception that was – I think it was returned for a touchdown, right? So, I think that those mistakes, and one of those was his, he doesn't make that mistake. Maybe it's a different ball game at the end of the game there, and it's not a – it's a 1-score game or it's a tie game or whatever, because that pick six, instead of being a pick six, maybe they score in that drive and you're talking a tie game at the end. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 4
small
turnovers.
mistakes are magnified in the playoffs. They really are.
Absolutely.
You're going against good teams. One last thing on the Shamar Stewart stuff, if you don't mind, because Nick Scorton, he played at Purdue, and he was very productive at Purdue with the sacks. He went to A&M. He's on this great defensive line with Turner and stuff like that. The A&M scheme, like were they just looking for the read option, just playing the run? Because even Nick Scorton kind of went down production and gained weight.
Yeah. They didn't get as many true pass rushing opportunities as they had in Scorton in the past with Purdue, and so those guys obviously, like, when you do have those opportunities, you have to make the most of them. I think Scorton did. I think Stewart didn't, right? And I think the system didn't help, but and that is part of like an issue when it comes to like projecting to the next level, right? So you see the talent the raw talent that Stewart has and the athleticism, and I think that there's untapped potential there, because you see the system and you go, all right, this guy's not being asked to full on rush and try to get to the quarterback. He's kind of waiting for the read option and then rushing, and then because of that, there's no quick get off to be able to get by the offense tackle, and so therefore you kind of have to win with like a predetermined pass set, like moves and stuff like that. And he doesn't have that. And I think if he doesn't have that, it makes it much more difficult to win by if you had your pure athleticism to get by, if you can time up the snap and get by the offense tackle. So, there because of that, there's a lot of, hey, this guy could potentially get to, this elite level in the NFL that he didn't show in college because of these reasons.
I appreciate your time, man.
Thank you
Sorry
so
to keep
much,
you a little
Sean.
extra, man.
No, it's all good. I'm happy to talk ball at any time.
You got anything you want to promote? I know you just did your mock draft. Any other articles you got coming up?
Yeah, I got an article coming up on Friday. It's going to be on Cam Ward. It's actually going to come out on Thursday, so it'll be my Cam Ward article. So my third like kind of real big breakdown on a quarterback this offseason for the draft. So I've done a number of articles. So check out the article I have as why I say Shedeur Sanders is QB1, why I think Jackson Dart's the top 15 prospect in this draft, and then obviously I had my mock draft on that just came out on Monday. So check that out at pff.com.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, my pleasure, guys.
See you later.